What is the worst thing you've ever seen someone do at a funeral? He handed out his business cards at his stepdaughter's funeral. There was very nearly a fistfight. Dwight. Good morning. Dwight Schrute. Thank you all for your prayers and your remembrances. Like Justin and his disfigurement, I too have had a horrible year. They say that the middle class is disappearing, and with it, the soul of America. So, as a gift to this beautiful congregation, I would like to offer a 4% discount on all Dunder Mifflin Sabre products if you buy a printer at full price. A few years back, when the uncle of my mother died, my young cousin, 8, cried a lot at the funeral. It took some time, but eventually he calmed down and his parents went for a little walk with him for some distraction. But then he noticed that his first name was written on one of the tombstones. He mentions it loudly and one of the bystanders said, "Yeah, it's already reserved for you." He immediately started crying again. That sounds like something my dad would do. My mother-in-law took a photo of a wine glass during the lunch we had after, and she posted it on Facebook. Guess what her caption was? "Life is grand. It was my mother's funeral. I'm impressed in a twisted way that people can reach new levels of a wholeness when I thought I'd heard it all." And when she was asked to take it down, she couldn't understand why. Nah, she understood why. She knew exactly what she was doing. I find it very difficult to believe it would be anything but malice. Die. It's like proposing at someone else's wedding, just rude. How mean it is to die at someone else's funeral. SMH. Some people are just attention whores. My aunt crawled into her father's open casket. I knew a guy who climbed up into the casket with his grandfather. This one's sweet and wholesome. He was around 4 years old. He wasn't sure what was going on, and people weren't giving him much attention. He asked someone what his grandfather was doing in a box at the front of the room. A relative, thinking they were explaining death in an age-appropriate way, told him that Grandpa went to sleep, and won't wake up again. So he went up to the casket, and climbed up. The room froze in shock. Then he said, "Good night, Grandpa," and he kissed him. Adults told him later you could hear a pin drop and there wasn't a dry eye in the room. It's a terrible day for rain. I went to the funeral of a coworker's fiancé. The girl's ex showed up, and as people were lined up to say goodbye, we all witnessed him lean into the coffin and kiss her on the lips. I will repeat myself, the ex-boyfriend of the deceased woman kissed her dead body at her funeral. In front of her fiancé. Her brothers quite literally threw him out. Those are the best brothers. My husband's brothers put themselves on pedophile watch at my wedding just in case my great-uncle decided to show up. Doesn't sound like a very great uncle to me. My uncle was pissed about something in my grandmother's will. So during the funeral, he went out to the parking lot and keyed everyone's car. It should be noted, he has severe brain injury from a motorcycle accident that causes him to be constantly angry and paranoid. Still. Damn bro, this probably one of the worst. What a pig it is. Even with the understanding he has a brain injury, it's bad. He also punched me in the jaw that day. His brain injury might explain his behavior, but it doesn't excuse it. I'm sorry you had to experience that. My mom passed 2 days before my first child was born. I didn't get pregnant again till 11 years later, so I was 5 months pregnant with my second child when my father passed. Someone came up to me at the funeral and said to me, "You should stop having kids, it's bad luck for your family. I want to find that person and hit them for you. I'll volunteer to join your team to track this person down no matter what it takes. My skills include, but are not limited to, I shall charge valiantly into battle and help you." My nan told my dad at his own father's funeral that her pain was much greater because she had lost a husband, while he had only lost his dad. As if grief is a competition. She is a person anyway, and not even blood related to us, so we just kinda don't associate anymore. My mother is like this. 25 years after they divorced, and she doesn't understand why it had any effect on me. It should not have, because it was her divorce, not mine. I'm sorry, it's tough having your emotions invalidated. My grandpa died. His son, my uncle, went around asking for money to give to his now widowed mother. He collected around $500 USD worth of donations from family, friends etc. He pocketed it, and my grandma didn't receive shit. I hope he's been excommunicated from the family now. Sadly, no. He's unemployed and my mom regularly sends money over to support his own family. My grandma was like that with her son. In her eyes, he never did wrong. He's in his 60s and I think he's worked maybe a month. She believed in him until the end, which came at his hands. He visited a dozen ATMs later that day to drain her account. I'm really sorry you've got a lousy uncle. Priest called the deceased, full of Essen, and refused one of his final requests that his dog's ashes be buried with him. His son didn't care and snuck in his dog's ashes with his anyways. Good Lord. What religion, sect was this? Roman Catholic. The whole of it I think was supposed to try and make it sound like being human was sinful and that dying absolved it. I did not get that impression. By that logic, why do people breed? To perpetuate sin? Because God is basically addicted to gardening but he hates vegetables. Selfie with the corpse. Corpsee. I'm so mad I found that funny. Fun in funeral. Came here to say this. Even worse when the person used a large tablet. There was one guy who did a face swap with his dead grandpa. No. A local boy died after being hit by a car while riding his bike. I think he was like 11/12 at the time. His sister, known to all to be very attention-seeking, immediately was doing news interviews, which just seemed odd, considering he had died earlier that day, but whatever, people grieve differently I suppose. But then at his wake, she took a few photos of him in the casket and posted it to her public Instagram story. It was super bizarre and just bad taste. It is bizarre and in bad taste, but this is a teenager who likely socializes primarily on social media. This is probably her way of seeking support. It's really quite sad. There is a difference between making a memory and grabbing for attention. Her brother just died, so I feel like grabbing for attention is acceptable in that situation if ever. My husband went to his great-aunt's funeral, and while they did the little ceremony in the cemetery, great-aunt's granddaughters were all hiding behind a tombstone giggling and doing coke. Edit. Guys, her grandkids were like 17 to 23. I thought you were going say, playing hide and seek, behind the tombstone. That took a much different turn than expected. Hide and tweak. Hide and schneef. My sister murdered her father, my stepfather. At the time we didn't know she was guilty. By the way, just so you know, she did this purely for financial gain. During the viewing she drug her little boy to the casket, and because he didn't cry enough to suit her, she pinched him on the upper arm until he was sobbing, then took him around to everyone saying he was really crying because he loved his gramps so much. Well, you win. In categories of winning. Holy sh*, man. That's F-ed up. He told the family he was marrying his longtime girlfriend. My mom had passed away 10 years previously, on Sunday, and by the next Friday he was dead, and she was executor of his estate shortly thereafter. She had been daddy's little girl her whole life, but when she realized the will would be changed, the clock was ticking. It took her 5 days to conceive of the plan and to carry it out. Not a funeral, but when my granddad passed and we went to view his body at the crematorium, my aunt started stealing from the facility the second the employee's back was turned. Just shoving anything that wasn't nailed down into her purse and pockets. Unbelievable. And yes, we called her out and made her put it all back. Do you mind me asking, WTF, the public spaces of a crematorium have worth stealing? In my opinion, nothing. According to my aunt, the pens, the miniature display urns, a candy dish with the candy, and some other random bits and pieces. I have no idea what her thought process was, if there even was one. Klepto. God damn it, Marie. They're minerals. Nowhere near as bad as most comments, but the family didn't allow for his twin to speak. Straight up skipped over the allocated time for the living twin to get up and speak about his brother, who was his last remaining immediate family. I don't think I can ever forgive the late wife for putting him through that. She treated him so horribly all throughout the sickness, and then to not allow him to be a part of the funeral was the final nail in the coffin. Edit. I didn't think this would resonate with people, and I'm truly shocked. Please consider making a donation to your local cancer research foundation, or donating stem cells. Cancer sucks. I disagree. I think this is bad as any here. The cruelty is inexcusable. Her ex told us about all the great things she did in bed and what a loss for mankind that is. In present of her boyfriend. If you don't die in battle, having the above said at your funeral means you still get into Valhalla. In this case, I think it would be Valhalla. Valhalla fame. I see what you did there. Take your up vote. Boom. Thank you for supporting Ask Planet. I love you.